A relentless ridge is about to take over the USA weather pattern into the week ahead, and this is going to mean warmer than average temperatures for pretty much everyone for an extended period of time. This video has all the details on that warm-up and how warm you'll specifically get, plus a look at any precipitation and storm trends up ahead. Let's get into it.
One Nation Weather.
We're now taking a look about 15 to 20,000 feet on up into the atmosphere thanks to this model, the European model, and its mid-level pattern map. What this shows you is where we've got the oranges and reds that indicate higher pressure ridging, which is the jet stream being pushed northward and therefore some warmer air overall moving into the country. And then also, if you see any blues, those are going to indicate some troughs and areas of cooler air. And as we go into this week, it is going to be all about the ridging, moving out of the Gulf Coast all the way up through the Central Plains. And even more so anomalously, as we go on up into the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes, we're going to see this big red blob of color on the map, and this indicates that we are seeing quite the bit of high pressure, overall dry conditions, and warmer than average conditions progressing through the central and eastern U.S. This is not only going to occur as we go out of our Sunday into our Monday, but also as we go through most of this week. That's just ridge number one. We'll talk about the other one later in this video. This is just that overview for what I'm going to be discussing, and one of the other things I will briefly discuss a little bit later on is this little blip that's going to try and cut through the ridge. This is not really a strong trough or dip in the jet stream. I'm going to call this more of a disruption in the jet stream flow as it kind of tries to sag down a little bit further south into the central U.S. This is going to mean that we're going to have a brief storm with some isolated showers and storms moving out of the central plains Monday, and then as we go into our Tuesday out of that region and into the Midwest, this is not going to be long-lived. It's not really going to provide any drought relief to drought-stricken areas, but what could bring a little bit of drought relief is that next area blue you see racing through the Great Lakes and Northeast Wednesday going towards Thursday. As soon as that little trough and area of briefly wet and cooler air moves through, as soon as it's there, it is gone, and by the time we go into our Friday, we're already seeing those yellows, oranges, and reds of ridging returning all across the country. Everything that I just overviewed, I am going to discuss in more detail throughout the rest of this video. You can see the three headlines on screen: the big ridge, a couple of quick storms, and then yet another big ridge later on down the line. There are timestamps in the description of this video if you want to skip ahead to a specific point. Make sure you're taking advantage of those timelines because I put them down there so you can access those specific parts of the video. Also, what I use in the videos are these weather model maps. There's a free trail link to them right down below in the description as well, so feel free to check that out while you're there. Here we go, though, taking a look at my latest custom graphic that I've made for you here, which is a temperature tracking graphic for the north central U.S. as we start this week. Omaha, Nebraska, going out of Sunday into Monday, going from the low 80s into the upper 70s. Either way, these temperatures 15 to 20 degrees above the normal average of 65. We should be in the 50s this time of year in Minneapolis. We are going to be in the low 80s both Sunday and Monday as this ridge builds. And places like Chicago, Detroit, New York City, all looking to be around 10 to 15 degrees above average as we're in the 70s when we should be in the 60s. Boston, Massachusetts going from 73 Sunday to 77 Monday. Your average high this time of the year around 61. Here's what that looks like in terms of your temperature anomaly graphic as we go towards our October 20th, which is our Sunday here. This graphic would look very similar if I were discussing Monday as well, because temperatures all across the northern U.S., closer to where that ridge in the jet stream really is occurring, are going to be the most anomalously warm. 10 to 15 to 20 degrees above average all the way up here as far north as the Canadian border, and that's only going to continue even as we go through our Monday. Here we go into our Tuesday, October 22nd of 2024. Another graphic for you here, and you can see out of the central U.S. through the Midwest, Great Lakes, and over into the Ohio Valley and Northeast, most communities are forecast to be running 10, 15, 20 degrees above normal for this time of the year, making those average highs that are around, say, 60 degrees get beat, and, those numbers are going to be surging well on up there into the 70s and even into the lower 80s. Let's go and go day by day with those daily high and low temperatures through at least midweek of this week, thanks to the National Digital Forecast Database products. Starting with our Sunday morning lows, you can see it is not even going to be that cool to start the day. It's going to be very mild, in fact, over a lot of the north central plains into the upper Midwest. Warmer here than it's going to be in the Ohio Valley on our Sunday morning as temperatures make their way in Nebraska, the Dakotas, Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin, only down into the 50s, and these are those morning time temperatures. Sunday, it is going to warm up quite a bit from these 50s, and by the time we get into our afternoon hours, the numbers are going to make their way well on up through the 70s and even into the 80s. Look at this: Southeast South Dakota, southern Minnesota. I'm not going to list those states I just mentioned again, but here we are with 80s up there in the north central plains. A lot more upper 70s through many parts of the mid-Mississippi Valley, the Midwest, back through the west central plains, and then down towards the Gulf Coast, we've also got plenty of 80s to go around. Even the eastern U.S. warming up behind that most recent cool down as we've got a lot of 70s in those zones. Yes, we'll cool down into the 40s across a lot of the country as we go out of Sunday into our early Monday. But some spots will even only get down into the 50s, and that's really going to be as this ridge continues to kind of make its way with the warmer anomalies north, and then also shifting a little bit further east here through the upper Midwest and Great Lakes. Notice plenty of upper 50s, even some low 60s in parts of the upper Midwest Monday morning, some 50s into the Great Lakes region, including parts of northern Indiana and northern Ohio, and especially into Michigan there. This is really as we've got a little bit of a boundary coming out of the Rockies and helping to also force more of those southerly winds up through the plains. That's that boundary that's going to have that little storm along in it. Again, that's something I'll discuss in a couple of minutes, but here we go into our Monday afternoon highs. Looking at those numbers, you can see we've got 70s as far north as parts of Maine. That's going to be near a record warm territory in some of those zones. That's one thing I can point out about the highs as we go into the week ahead. A lot of them uniform through the upper 70s from the southeast U.S. all the way on up here to the Canadian border. But remember, the further north you go, the lower the average high temperature this time of the year actually is. So 70s the further north you go is a lot more common than, say, 70s in a place like Mississippi or Alabama, and that's why those anomalies are more like 20 to 25 degrees above average up into the upper Midwest and Great Lakes. Those same anomalies continuing into our Tuesday morning with a big swath of 50s and 60s surging all the way on from the south central plains, even all the way on up there towards places like Minnesota and Wisconsin. Into our Tuesday afternoon, a little bit cooler in some parts of the upper Midwest, more like some upper 60s and into the low to mid 70s. But further south, it's actually going to be one of the most anomalous days we see all week. Down here in Texas, Oklahoma, parts of Arkansas, Louisiana, as well as many other parts of the Gulf Coast, plenty of mid to upper 80s getting in the mix, even a few spots possibly hitting 90 in Texas and Oklahoma, and those could break record highs. Wednesday, another warm morning, or at least a mild morning by this time of year standards, right? As those numbers in the mid-Mississippi Valley, the Midwest, heading through the Great Lakes into the Northeast, all these zones where you see kind of those deeper blues getting into some of those kind of yellowish shades as well. We're looking at low to mid-50s, even a few upper 50s where you see those yellows really starting to take hold. Back to the northwest of this, there is a little bit of a front in the north central plains. 30s in that zone in the Dakotas and Minnesota for our Wednesday morning lows, and Wednesday afternoon actually only near 50 in a place like Minneapolis, Minnesota. That is a big contrast from what we just saw a few days before by this point, right? As we go into our Sunday and Monday, we're near 80 in that spot. 60 to 70-ish along that cold frontal boundary that's going to be sliding through the north central plains and Midwest. Meanwhile, though, out ahead of it, we continue with 70s and 80s. That cold front is the second sneaky zone where we'll have some isolated precipitation this week, but there is another one that I showed you. It's that little blip moving out into the central plains Monday and then towards the Midwest going into our Tuesday. And you can already see it here. Most of the country, in fact, pretty much all of it dry as we go into our Monday, October 21st in the morning. But there's a little blip of precipitation down there in western Kansas, the panhandle of Oklahoma, as well as the panhandle of Texas associated with this system. As we go through our Monday midday, heading into the afternoon and evening hours, this is going to progress through the central and eastern parts of particularly Nebraska, Kansas, and Oklahoma. And you can see we'll have to watch in a place like Omaha, through eastern Kansas into west central Missouri, and then back towards southwest Iowa for some isolated to scattered shower and thunderstorm coverage as this moves through into our late Monday, into the Monday night and early Tuesday timeframe as well. This is basically the only early week system to watch. This is system number one. Just as quickly as this thing forms up, it is going to weaken down. Look at that, moving through Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois. It pretty much fades away to nothing through our Tuesday. Then here comes our midweek cold front that's going to make it as a late week cold front the further east you go. You can see up here through the upper Midwest, maybe some showers and breezy conditions late Tuesday into our Tuesday night in places like Minnesota, Wisconsin. Wednesday afternoon, parts of Michigan, some isolated showers. And then just as quickly as it moves through those areas, we see a brief cool down behind it into our Thursday morning while we see showers progressing east. Look at this zone you can see over here as you go towards West Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York, as well as Vermont. Into our early Thursday, watching some at least isolated scattered shower coverage. We might see some 20 to 30 mile per hour wind gusts out of this, but this is not going to be enough substantial rain in places like Ohio and West Virginia where we have such an intense drought going on to really make a difference. There's that drought, in fact, with the latest drought monitor from late last week here, so just a few days ago, released on our Thursday, October 17th. Drought so extreme there in parts of southeast Ohio into West Virginia. And most of the central and western parts of the country also in need of at least some form or fashion of some precipitation. We've got a pretty moderate to severe drought through a lot of the plains, as well as on up there into the Mountain West. Rain is needed, but it is not on the way anytime soon. Everything I just showed you is the rain through the end of this week, and as we go towards late this week and the upcoming new weekend, so about 7 days out from when I'm filming this video, say as we go towards our 25th, 26th, 27th of October, more warmer than average and drier than average conditions building over a lot of the U.S. with yet another ridge. And let me show you how that ridge is expected to develop using some ensemble members. These really are just a collection of members that get averaged out into this solution that I'm showing you here. So it's really a good thing to look at, especially for trends looking further down the line. And as we go towards, say, Thursday, October 24th, notice warmer than average conditions through a lot of the central U.S. These ensemble members already predicting around 10 to 15 degree above average conditions there. This new ridge will make a run at being just as strong as our early week ridge. Here we go towards our Saturday, October 26th. A lot of the central U.S., even into some parts of the Ohio and Tennessee valleys, around 10 plus degrees above average. That's already being anticipated this far out. That could definitely go up to as much as around 15 plus degrees above normal. Going into our Sunday, some of those areas maybe a little bit closer to normal, but don't worry, if those areas are a little bit back down towards those normal fall averages, we're going to see other areas like the upper Midwest and North Central Plains that are getting well above average. Already 10 days out from this, I'm filming this video late on our October 19th. Here we go towards our October 29th. Morning time temperatures on that day already being anticipated to be 10, 12, even 14 plus degrees above seasonable averages. So this is going to be yet another strong ridge building into the U.S. just in time for around Halloween. Here we go towards that time. In fact, pausing it for you right here using these ensemble members, going towards our Thursday, October 31st of 2024, trick-or-treating looks around 10, 15, even 20 degrees above average already through the upper Midwest into the Great Lakes and Northeast. Again, this is 12 days out, so I don't want anybody to think that this is exactly what's going to happen, but there is probably an 80+% chance that most of the eastern and central U.S. is above average at that time frame. There will be some cooler air building in the west, though, and eventually some of that might have a tendency to move east. That's one thing that I talk about, the tendencies of temperatures. That's what I've discussed already in the winter 2024 to 25 outlook that I produced about a month ago. My next one should be on the way within the next month or month and a half before the season officially starts. So make sure you're checking out the first one if you have not already, using the link down below in the description. Also, if you want to catch my next full USA weather forecast video, make sure you're subscribing down below, especially if you like more consistent, accurate, and educational updates in the future. That is it for this video. I'll catch you probably early this week with the next one.